So here's where we're at. Do a quick little video here. This is what I'm looking at. Oh dear, that's serious business right there. Got me a very crude camp set up on the back of my truck, deep in the woods, after 2 days of rain, a lot of rain. Firewood is in generous supply around this clear cut. There's no shortage of it. The problem is that every bit of it that's been seasoning since last year in September, October, is soaking wet, saturated. So for my evening fire, what I've done is I started out with a fire pit. I've got some fat wood down in the fire pit. I've got some laying right there beside it too, because it's going to take a good little bit, and that's something else that's in generous supply out here if you look around. I dug me a little fire pit, and I started just like I would a normal fire lay. And then in the back, I drove 2 stakes in the ground. I don't need a reflector fire tonight, and I don't really, it's going down into the 50s, but I don't need a fire to keep me from freezing to death. But I've got to dry that wood out in order to have good usable wood. So, I've started with my smalls, and I've worked my way up until I've got good sized wood sitting on there to dry out to keep my fire going. The last thing I want to have to deal with tonight, after being down in the woods, I'm hoping to connect with the deer. It's kind of iffy the way the wind's blowing, but I'm here and I've got to try. I sure won't have any success getting a deer sitting up here on this hilltop. And the last thing I need to have to deal with is having to fuss with getting a wet fire going when I get back from the woods, especially if I've got a deer hanging that I've got to do something with. So we'll start with a little fire down there in the bottom, keep adding some of that fat wood to it, a few other smalls to keep things going and build up some coals, and that should do the trick. Just a little video. It's dark out there. The candle does a nice job lighting up the inside of my bed. Good old kerosene lantern. A lot quieter than Coleman lanterns. And there's the fire. Oh, by golly, that's nice. Had a great time in the woods this afternoon. Got down there, climbed my tree about 3 o'clock, and I wasn't up that tree 15 or 20 minutes, and I could hear something walking back behind me. And then a few minutes later, I got a look at what was walking. It's a beautiful, beautiful doe. And she had circled around, and she was coming in on my downwind side. And even though I was up that tree, the way the wind was blowing, she was still catching a little sniff of me now and then. And she never got alarmed, never got too nervous or anything, but it was obvious, you know, she kept sticking her nose up and smelling. And she was 10 yards, maybe 12 yards away from me. And there's always some kind of little bushes and stuff that would have deflected an arrow, so I didn't even try a shot. There was one, as she was walking away, I could have shot her rear end, but I don't make those kind of shots. If it's not a good shot, I don't make them. Stayed in that tree until right at dark, and came up here and touched off my fire and cooked a little supper with my alcohol stove and settling in for the evening. There y'all. It's been a really good day. Getting back in here and getting set up and doing a little afternoon or late afternoon into almost dark archery hunt. One of the things about this part of the country, you can call it stalk hunting. In fact, that's the way they list it in the book. But there's more of a resemblance to squirrel hunting, only just bigger squirrels. When you get into these thick bottoms, you find your good spot and you just set up and you just wait. And that might get next to somebody that's a little OCD or can't sit still very long, but it's a good way to spend some time in the woods. After I got back to the truck, I'm humped up here in the back of the camper shell, getting ready to turn out this candle and blow out this candle. And but right after I got back to the truck and got my fire going and getting ready to settle into doing what I had to do for the evening, I don't know how far away, but it was a good long way. It sounded like a fox bark, and to the southeast. And there's a huge clear cut to the left of where I'm in my truck bed right now. And it's way off on the southeast end of it. And just a little bit later, I heard another one bark about the same distance away, but due north of where that first one was at. And that was kind of neat to hear. Every now and then something flies overhead, and I haven't been able to figure out what that is. Probably an owl flying by. It's out in the woods where I'm at. This is 12 miles from the nearest small town. 8 miles in one direction to one, and 12 miles in the other direction. I can stand here on top of this hill and look back to the west and see the lights of Bay Minette, and I can see the sky lit up that far away. But it's been a good day, and I'm fixing to turn in and do it again in the morning. Well, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Kerosene lantern burned all night. I don't know how much fuel you put in there, but it's not that much. And I lit that right at dark yesterday, and it's still shedding a little bit of light. It doesn't kick out like a noisy Coleman propane mantle type lantern. I kind of like the ambiance. It's quiet. That's the main thing. I had plenty of coals left down in that pit, and I stirred those around and whittled some fat wood shavings in there and stacked up a little bit of fat wood on top of that and some small stuff, and it didn't take but just a minute or two and it came back to life. 55 degrees, kind of pleasant, chilly without the fire. So I'm basically sitting here watching the fire, pondering. I checked the weather a few minutes ago, wind directions and such as that. Crazy how fickle the weather can be. Yesterday it was coming out dead out of the north, and that was bad for the way I've got my ladder stand set up. So I hung a climbing stand and saw that one deer, but she was coming in at an angle that she was able to scent me a little bit, and she never acted alarmed. She's 10, 12 yards away from me, but she's just kind of poked around there and stayed behind some bushes and then wandered off to the south. Primary feeding time today is supposed to be from about 9:30 to 12:30, so I'm not in a big rush to get back down into the woods. You know, coming up, it was always a traditional thing to be in your stand an hour before daylight, and a lot of times you'd do that and sit there and suffer from the elements and stay there till 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning and never see anything. And then folks got smart and started studying these critters and weather patterns and the way wildlife is affected by the cycles of the moon. And I'm pretty much a hunt by what the moon is doing person anymore. I still do that traditional get out there before daylight and now and then if that's all I can do, but I much prefer to hunt by the feeding tables. And with the deer feeding from 9:30 to 12:30, and the way this fickle weather has, the wind direction has been changed again. Right now it's a little breeze, about 3 mile an hour breeze out of the north, and around 8 o'clock, by 8 o'clock, that direction is changing to a northeasterly direction, which makes sitting in my ladder stand still not ideal, but a lot more doable than if the wind was dead out of the north. So I'm going to ease down there and get in my ladder stand and sit until about 12:30, 1 o'clock. Hopefully put some meat in the cooler.